The idea behind the debate this afternoon is to try and get a discussion going between the people up at the front here, all men. We've had so many ladies on the stage today, and we have no ladies up here to this point. Anyway, hopefully you'll ask some difficult questions from the floor. All familiar faces around us, of course. We've got E.Leclerc from Tetra Pak. We just heard from François from McCain. Pascal, who kicked us off at the beginning of the day, and he's here at the end still. Thomas, Michael, and of course Jeff on the side. What we're going to do is hear some questions from the floor. We've been taking a look at what has been put up on the idea tree during the day, and some good ideas that have come through there, and we're going to try and discuss these things and see if we can come up with some good conclusions and solve some of the problems that are out there. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you questions, but please can we keep the responses short and sharp. You've all had stage time. Now it's focus and down to the key elements of the answers we need. So I think there's a first question out there in the room from Achim. From Achim Greifenstein.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have heard in the last presentation that some startups have really good ideas, and also this morning the Mango story. These are all interesting examples of small companies which have not these big resources as global players in their room. And that leads me to the question, how can we better support these entrepreneurs with their good ideas so that they actually can turn this idea into a great business? And how should especially here also these companies support innovators which want to convert the surplus in startup situations? So, question to everybody here.
Well, let's ask a small startup. Michael.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's a number of ways in which larger organizations can support. One is support in kind. So, companies that have experience in bringing brands to market, why not share their marketing expertise or their market development or their relationships with the buyers in the different outlets that these products would like to be in, and that can move the process along greatly. So the backing of a large organization to the product acts as a nice stamp of approval, and I think that can help things happen much faster. And then the other is also to look at seed funding, and so in a number of these things, quite small sums of money can transform these projects very, very quickly. And thinking of what some budgets get spent on, 5, 10, 20, 30,000 euros can go an incredibly long way with some of these different initiatives. And it might be that organizations can look at supporting in those ways.
Herman, Michael mentioned earlier the challenges of getting the packaging right. He's a young guy in a startup situation. Do you come across similar groups, and are you helping them? Are you ready to come in and support? Are you going to put money on the table? Give them the boost they need to get through?
No, absolutely. I think that is one of I would say core strengths in doing business. What we feel which Tetra Pak has, and that is that we do not consider ourselves just as a supplier of a packaging material or a filling machine, and we tend to work, as we call it, either glass to glass. If it is milk, that is have sister concerns and expertise in the organization, right from the milking area still all the way to the consumer side. And whenever there are people who are interested, who do not have the wherewithal on marketing side or on the technical side to really work on these things, the Tetra Pak works very closely with them to ensure that they get the right inputs on the technical side as well as the marketing side, to ensure that it's a beneficial situation for both of them.
François, you've had the experience also. What's the key learning for you? What is it that big companies can bring to the party, and should you be doing more? Will you be doing more as McCain?
Yeah, we've been looking at doing partnerships with social entrepreneurs, small-scale entrepreneurs. It's actually not so easy for the very simple reason that what we're looking for is models that can be replicated and that can be sustainable in time. So this is also a vision, a company positioning that we would like to evolve from a model of philanthropy and charity towards a model of social business, meaning that €1 invested in a social entrepreneur or a social business is demultiplying its impact many-fold over the period of a business lifetime, while €1 invested in charity is just one-time impact and then it's gone. And so finding the social entrepreneurs that fit into the model of McCain in our supply chain model, and that can have a win-win situation where it makes sense for McCain and it makes sense for the social entrepreneur, is not that easy. It takes time, and I think one of the ways to make it happen is to really start at the inception moment to co-create together. So as from the ideation phase of the project, sitting around the table with small-scale social entrepreneurs.
But is that really
companies.
feasible? Is that really feasible? You
Yes.
know, if you're a small guy to try and get in the door, do you think that's really...
Yes.
Will they get in the door at Nestlé, for example, do you think?
Well, I will let my colleague answer, but I think that there are more and more initiatives of multi-stakeholder dialogue happening, where around the table at the ideation phase you have different actors sitting together and starting to dialogue together at the inception phase, and then of course stepping up the challenge and really making something concrete happen. That's where the rubber hits the road.
So if you've got a good idea at the beginning, you need to be thinking about how to make it a great business very soon. Has that been your experience, Michael? Was it easy for you to get in and talk to them, to talk to others who are interested?
Yeah, I mean, I think because we have a product that people like and a story that is quite compelling, we've found people being quite open to us, and we've had some larger partners that have held our hand in a nice way. And now we're trying to talk to proper investors, and there it's around the financial case that we bring to the table, and it really moves away from, is it a nice idea in terms of the impact, and it's really around, does the business model sustain itself? And I think sometimes the challenge that we see with smaller people who commit themselves entirely to being social enterprises and not unlocking their profits limits their ability to scale in the future. And to create, successful brands takes huge amounts of investment. And if there's no profit that can be returned to the investor, then it's very difficult to raise the capital that's needed. So sometimes I think projects that are supported by government or companies that really place very strict criteria on what's going to happen to the profit can also limit the ability of these social enterprises to scale. And I think if your business is having an environmental and social impact as its core, even if it's retaining profits or redistributing profits to shareholders, it can still be a social enterprise.
Sure. I think it's interesting that we've seen in the soup example that we had a family-owned and run company still today, E.Leclerc, working with another family company. How would a publicly quoted company like Nestlé look at this?
So first we have to not to forget that food industry from the beginning has always been there, in fact, to preserve raw material. So we shouldn't discover today that by dehydrating products, finally we can make them shelf stable. As it was said this morning, or this afternoon, soluble coffee has been invented because there was surplus of green coffee in Brazil in the 1920s, 30s. Milk powder, the same. It's a way to conserve fresh milk. And dehydrated soup, the same. Mr. Maggi in Germany invented the dehydrated soup also because there was a seasonality of raw material. So in fact, all the food industry, and that's one of the main benefits of the food industry, which is sometimes forgotten, that the food industry has been invented to preserve perishable raw materials. So here there is nothing really new, and technologies are improving. There has been dehydration, there has been freezing, but what we have heard is all the story of food industry basically. Now when it comes to developing new business, we Nestlé, we have a guiding principle for business is creating shared value. Creating shared value means that we recognize that for a company to be sustainable, long-term oriented as we are, we have to create value for the shareholder, of course, and at the same time create value for the community where we operate. And we have defined 3 priority areas where we want to focus our effort. That's nutrition, water, and rural development. And this is what guides our efforts towards the community where we operate. So we, as it has been said also, today we have many programs to help our suppliers, be it cocoa farmers, be it coffee farmers, to improve the quality of their product, to improve their yield, to reduce waste. And we don't own farms, but we have more than 1,000 agronomists on the field who are helping the smallholders who are very dependent, in fact, on their customers, and sometimes they are even victims somehow of middlemen who are buying their product for almost nothing when they even sometimes do not pay the raw material. So here we see that's really where we can best help the community in which we operate. That's helping the smallholders, the suppliers, to improve the quality of their product, to improve their yields, to reduce wastage. And I mentioned this morning pre-harvest losses, and I think that's something which shouldn't be forgotten. By underperforming agricultural practices reduces the income of the farmers. And then we can also not only look at how to convert wasted or byproducts, but also to help suppliers to improve their yields and to do more with the same quantity. And that's where we focus our efforts.
Great. Jeff, do you see a role for the entrepreneur in the food banks area?
Well, I think we're seeing younger and younger people getting involved in food banks. I mean, there's some just great stories around the world. They're looking at models that were described, and I think the reality is young people are looking to engage, and they find unacceptable a series of things that have become acceptable or ignored or not paid attention to for a while. So regrettably, we find a lot come into the food banks and bring great energy, great business discipline. The problem becomes they have young families and they're not really getting a wage that kind of is consistent with their vision of being able to support their family. So it becomes almost their first entrepreneurial. It's really a venture capital-like experience, except they're working on a different kind of stakeholder return. So there's a lot of movement where it starts in food banks, expertise is gained, and then there's a migration to the social entrepreneurial businesses that are now courting impact investment capital, and a whole supply chain of entrepreneurialism is happening that starts on the social venture side, and it mirrors the regular way venture market, and now those markets are starting to converge, because there's hybrid models that exist. At least in the U.S., there's some technology that allows for capitalizations to be both completely nonprofit, completely for-profit, and then a hybrid structure, so that there's different parts of the capital structure that can be made available by philanthropic organizations that might be willing to accept a non-market return, and then there'll be a core of the investment capital to motivate the entrepreneurs to work as hard as they're going to have to work, because they have to work plenty hard, and I think you saw a good example of that, so that they know that there are different forms of return, a psychic return, but ultimately a financial return, so they can take real risk in the process.
Thomas, maybe you tell us a little bit about how the project evolved within your business, and how you came to partner with McCain, and do you feel you got all you wanted out of that exercise, out of that cooperation, or is there more to get?
I made the same difficulty as the one I can hear today. The fact is that the biggest the company is, we are all part of bigger organizations. I have the opportunity to be independent in my store. This is a specificity from Leclerc, and it's quite important, because the threat, major threat, even for Leclerc and for Nestlé and for so on, I can't feel the real difference between the firm, the corporate speech, and the NGO speech. This is right, we are all focused on struggling food waste. But what I want from an NGO is a speech. What I want from Nestlé, what I want from Leclerc, what I want from McCain is acts. I want things to change. I do not want sponsoring of TV ads with greener and greener images. I want different products in my trolley on the shelves. When you are a young firm, as my neighbor here, Snact, imagine how it can be difficult to get to the shelves. So many steps to take before getting to the shelves. For Nestlé, for McCain, for others, it's quite easier. Let's get some ideas inside, but let's do things. I was with Unilever a few weeks ago in the same kind of event. I really loved the word of the CEO. He said, okay, what would a startup like Snact do facing this situation? Okay, let's do the same. Because why do we have so much processes that are changing our way of thinking and our way of acting? The acting is obvious. It's already done by individuals on each market. So you can promote them, you can identify them, but you can become one of them, each of us in our organizations.
Great. Well, I think we covered a lot of different areas there, but I think the key message is think replicability right from the beginning and see if you can convince some big players to help you and may shorten that journey. So we have a question out there, I think. Next one to come in, there we are. Dana Masora from Dow.
I found this day extremely inspirational. Fantastic presentations and a lot of ideas shared from both public and private sectors. Fantastic. What was interesting to see that it's a lot to do on the whole chain from the farmers to the consumer, and it can be done individually, but more importantly in collaboration between private and public. The question I have for the panelists is, in fact, what do you think, in your view, can be done to address the consumer behavior, which we've seen that has a big influence in the whole problem of wasting food?
Okay, I think this goes to the core of many of the concerns which were on the idea tree. A lot of people were talking about how can we get the consumer to change? Can we teach them how to use the food they have in their refrigerator and their cupboards better? Can we better educate kids? There's a whole range of different ideas that came on the idea tree, but perhaps I could ask one of our major communicating companies beside me, Nestlé, and Pascal, to talk about that. How do we really get the consumer to think differently and, more important, act differently?
Mm-hmm. So what we shouldn't do is to blame the consumer. We cannot tell him, don't do this, don't do that, because it creates stress, frustration, and then he will finally tell you, you know, I do what I want. So the best thing is to propose solutions. And I think we have seen a few examples today. We have one of our company who is proposing, we have seen based on web-based app, how to prepare leftovers, which are still in the fridge. So there are different ways. We can also propose product helping to prepare leftover in the fridge. So there are solutions. So it's up to us, to food companies and to maybe retailers also, to provide solutions to the consumers so that they don't even notice that they reduce food waste. Because what we want is them that they use what they have in their fridge. So let's help them to use what they have in their fridge or in their at home, without telling them that it is to reduce food waste. Because the consumer, what he wants is to eat healthy, tasty food. So let's help them to eat tasty, healthy food with the leftovers, if it helps.
Herman, one of the ideas that was on the board was that we should be using the packaging actually to communicate messages. What do you think about that as an idea?
No, absolutely, I think that's a very good idea. And there are people across the world who are using packaging as a very interesting way. You know, I don't where they give very good information about how to use the product, that what you're talking about. That besides a plain product, you have the recipes which are there on the side of the product. That also educates them as to how do you, in a way, recycle the packages, how do you use that, and also some promotions which encourages them to bring out some new recipes and educate other customers and other consumers about it. So all that put together, packaging I think also plays a big can play a very big role in education there.
Thomas, you're a retailer. You're in contact with the
real
consumer
customers,
every day. So what are you doing to change the way they behave?
Sometimes I make this game. Do you know what's the question that the customer is asking himself when entering a supermarket? What's for dinner tonight? And we should help him to find smart solutions, cheap solutions, solutions adapted to its use, to its budget, to its way of living. And this is something we should try to. The best piece of advice you can give to a consumer to lower its global food waste is to make a list of menus of the week. When am I at home? How many we will be for this lunch, for this dinner? And then you make a list of a shopping list with this list of menu and your cupboards in front of you. Then you eat and then you go shopping.
Michael, you've targeted the office world apparently.
Yeah.
Why not children? What about kids? Shouldn't we be teaching kids? And isn't a product like yours made for educating children?
Yep. No, it is. The reason why we went for the adult market is that there's a company that does a quite good job for targeting the kid market. So we thought let's differentiate ourselves a little bit, and that offices seem to be very keen with the idea of replacing biscuits in the conference room or whatever, and using the product to demonstrate some sustainability credentials. But absolutely, this is something that we're working with one of our contract catering partners on bringing into schools, because we can not only teach them about nutrition, but we can also teach them about sustainability. And because our brand is really bringing the idea of tackling food waste to the front, then it's an easy platform to address it. Just one thing I just wanted to ask to the group a little bit is something about best before dates. And I think it's crazy that in the UK, you have a number of the CEOs of supermarkets who say, I don't follow best before dates. And that their advice is that I eat products beyond the best before date. But we know that people are influenced by this. And this is one of the things that is driving a lot of food waste in the homes as well. And so this is something that we need to talk about. How do we, instead of having it as a static thing, use technology or use ways in which we can engage the consumer to understand this, so that they're not being almost misinformed by what's on the front of the pack.
Yeah, maybe Pascal, you'd come back on the whole question of labeling, and what about new things like time, temperature indicators? Is there scope for a new way of doing this?
There is a lot of new technology which can help to fine-tune the information provided to the consumer. For instance, we increasingly use QR codes on our packs, so it allows to provide more information without increasing the size of the packaging, because we shouldn't forget that packaging waste is still an issue for many consumers, and we cannot just say packaging safe food, so please accept packaging waste. No, we have to address both food waste and packaging waste. And today I had the feeling sometimes that we are tempted to take food waste as a kind of an excuse to justify packaging waste. And we have to be careful. We shouldn't play this game. We have to address both. Food waste, of course. It's true that packaging helps to reduce wastage of food. That's true. But there is still, on top of that, the issue of packaging waste. So I would recommend that even when we address food waste, we also not forget, by the way, to mention the question of what do we do with the packaging once it's not used after the consumption of the product. Otherwise, we will have backfire on people saying, as these people, they just talk about food waste in order to deviate the attention from the packaging waste issue, which is still in the mind of many consumers, something they cannot still cope with, and they would like to have solutions to that also. So we have to be careful there. Now, there, as I said at the beginning, many new technologies, and certainly it will continue, allowing to provide more and more information to consumers on the product for those who are interested, because not all of them are interested, and not all of them can spend even 5 minutes to read information every time they buy a product in a supermarket or online. So that's something we have to be prepared to provide the information to those who are interested to know, that they're right to know, and that's what we think is a company.
Herman, as a packaging manufacturer, do you think that perhaps the packaging industry is trying to move the spotlight onto the food chain rather than trying to do more about its own products?
Come again, please.
I think the message there was the packaging industry is perhaps trying to divert the attention, the waste focal point, onto the food chain and not from the packaging waste issue.
No. But I think, on the packaging side, one more point was on the sizing, because what we're talking about, that people keep things in their fridge, and if it's wasted, if it is not really of the right quality, they simply throw it away. So in case you can have the right sizing also on the packaging side, I think that is one of the efforts which we are trying to do. That besides a shelf life product, so that as long as you do not open it, it is fresh. But once you open it, you consume it at once. So the chances of waste are minimal there. So that is another effort, I think, which we are doing, and more and more of that should happen, because as long as you try to sell in one shot a large quantity, the question of packaging waste or food waste would be still alive.
So do you think that the policymaker doesn't really understand the dynamics of the modern market, that actually more packaging is actually a better solution all round for both food waste and packaging waste?
Absolutely. I think there is a need of understanding on that side, because morning we were talking about a situation in India where there is a legislation now on packaging that if it is not a recyclable packaging, then it's a challenge. Without understanding that, what do you classify in the recycling side or the other side? So to sensitize, to educate the government also on this part, I think is something which is important on that.
Very good. Well, I think we have a question here from the floor, please. Get you a microphone.
I'm sorry that I am not calling with your family name, because I don't know the pronunciation in French or English. I call you Thomas. I'm very glad that the owner and the decision maker, as you are present here to try to answer to my question. One of the terrible barriers in supermarket organization, they are the buyer. That when you present innovation, they say always no, or they are annoyed. Due to the fact that you are introducing a new deal as Roosevelt, you change the way to be open. In which way you can create the communication between the innovator, as we are in packaging, and the top management to take the correct decision? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giuseppe.
Thank you. I'll try to. I wanted also to share the fact that in 2008, when we started the Green Cook program, a European program with fundings for studying food waste and the link between men and food, more largely, at that time, none of our customers were dealing with its own food waste. Everybody was in a kind of denial. And last year, 80% of the customers place struggle against food waste on the top 3 actions they want to have. So I think buyers, even at Leclerc, will be forced by social demand to make it evolve and to make a place. It's a kind of honor for us to have Bon et Bien. From the beginning of a project, I was the only one who was selling Bon et Bien, and the question was, will you be able to sell the whole production for Bon et Bien? And as time passes, my whole cooperative area, the whole north of France, is telling me, okay, we will sell Bon et Bien, huh? You will sell us Bon et Bien? They didn't even ask me for the price. this is a kind of clue.
A dream come true. A dream come true. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to make a recommendation here and now for the next meeting, and that is that we allow a whole lot more time for the panel debate, because I feel we could go on for another half an hour. But I'm sorry to say that we're right up against the end of our time, and we need to finish up, because there will be a cocktail at 4 o'clock, and that's the most important thing when it's 10 to 4, isn't it? To be ready for the cocktail at 4 o'clock. So all I can do is thank my panelists for their contributions. I think that was a great discussion. You did a wonderful job. Sorry we didn't have more time. Sorry we didn't have more time for the questioners, but maybe more next year. Thank you very much.